It's Wayne and Jess for breakfast on this Thursday morning, and that is the music, Jess. It's time to talk law.
Radio 97's lawyer is in from Priala Legal, a boutique property law firm in the northern end of the Gold Coast, and with us this morning, Despina Priala, the principal of the firm. She's practiced property and commercial law on the Gold Coast for over 25 years, has built up an impressive legal pedigree, which includes presiding over the settlement of the iconic Q1 Tower, construction of several local towers, and the second Palazzo Versace Hotel in Dubai during her time as in-house counsel at Sunland Group. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Jess. Good morning, Wayne.
How do you follow an intro like that?
That's a very big intro.
Look at all that you've done.
I have, yes.
What a CV.
Well, thank you. Yes, it's been an interesting 25 years. Yes, very colourful, very interesting. Lots of good adventures and good legal work. Yes.
And we love your general advice every week. We're so glad that you're able to join us because we always have so many topics that raise, and we're thinking, who can we turn to? And you can answer most of them over the 40 minutes that you're here.
Well, I try to, and I try to give that practical advice, which is so important for the listeners.
And all that experience will come in handy for our questioner this morning. Brian from Tweed Heads has sent us an email to breakfast@radio97.com.au. Now, Brian's been looking around at all sorts of new building projects around, and there are plenty. There's a lot of them are off the plan, and he's a little concerned about some of the ins and outs of off the plan. Now, this is something that you deal with a lot. What are your thoughts, firstly, on off the plan buying when you're looking at a new project?
Well, I'm glad Brian called because it's quite timely. There are a lot of projects on the go at the moment. And when I talk about projects, there's a lot of buildings being built. You can just do your drive up and down the Gold Coast Highway from North End all the way down to Tweed, and you can see for yourself through Burleigh, Palm Beach, Currumbin, Tweed Head, Chindera. So there's lots of projects going on at the moment. So developers have bought a parcel of land and they go and get a development approval to build whatever they desire, whether it's 6 levels, 7 levels, 14 levels, tower of units, and that's what we call off the plan. So it's a property that is yet to be constructed. The developer wants to sell to buyers off the plan. So it means that it's not yet completed, but he's representing to buyers, this is what I intend to build, and this is what I intend to deliver to buyers in the market at the end of my 18 months or 2 years construction period. And I'd like to sell these lots off the plan to buyers and have them go under contract early, so then they're committed and then I can complete the project.
I guess people always want to know that everything's going to be going to plan because it's all great right there before you, but how do we know that they're going to keep up with all those specifications?
Exactly, and this is really important. So the contracts for off the plan are vastly different to your standard REIQ contracts or for existing properties. Very, very different. You should never ever sign an off the plan contract without getting advice first and from someone who actually understands off the plan contracts. Not all lawyers do understand, and that's not having a dig at anybody at all. It's just that it is a specialised area and you need to really understand the legal ramifications as well as the practical side of why these contracts particularly are favoured to the developer. And a lot of buyers ask me that and have asked over the years, why is it all for the developer? Why is it always favouring them? And there are really good reasons for that, and I explained that to buyers at the time. So we can talk about that this morning and what to look out for when you're signing off the plan contracts.
This is certainly, well, there's plenty of areas to look at. Now, obviously, it's a big step when you decide to buy off the plan. Can you just give us a couple of tips, perhaps? I mean, obviously, it will take far more time than we have available this morning, but just a couple of tips if you're thinking, just that first step of buying off the plan. What should you think about? What should you look at?
Okay, so one of the first things I say to buyers is you do understand that it's not yet constructed. You do understand that you've actually got to wait. So you've got to have that mindset that, yes, I'm going to allocate a certain amount of funds and money and I'm prepared to wait for 12 months, 18 months, depending on where the project is at, to then eventually purchase, settle and move in if that's their goal, or it might be an investment property and rent it out. So if someone, once I explain that to buyers and then they actually say to me, oh, well, I actually don't want to wait, I actually say to them, well, this is not for you.
Yeah.
If you're looking to buy a property now, forget you're off the plan.
It's not the
And
way to
then,
go.
exactly. So once I explain that, it's a very practical way of looking at it, then they understand and then they go, no, I do, and I want to go ahead and commit early and lock in that purchase price, which is one big advantage to signing early on. And then they just sit and wait for it to be completed throughout the process. So why would you sign an off-the-plan contract early in the piece too? And that's a big question that people ask. And one of the big advantages, I said before, is you lock in your price.
Price, yep.
So the downside, of course, and there's always a downside and an upside. The downside is we don't know what the market's going to look like when the project is completed. And people ask me, well, what happens at the end if it doesn't value up to what it should? And that's when I say, well, we don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the market's going to predict. So you can only do the best homework you can currently with what other projects are selling for that are similar to the one you're looking at. Try and assess if it's good value for what they're asking for early on. And if you're fairly comfortable, talk to your financial advisors and your accountant and your lawyer. Then you sign up early. Now that price, once you sign that contract, it is locked in. The developer cannot change the purchase price once you have signed your contract and locked it in. So that is the big plus.
Is there ever the case that they could go bankrupt before it's been built and then you're swindled out of having a place to move into?
Yeah.
Yes, that is always a possibility. So the other thing that buyers ask me, and sometimes I can answer this, sometimes I can't, is, well, what about this developer? What do you know about them? What other projects have they completed? Do you hear any rumours that they might be going under? And that is a very big, real issue to talk through with buyers. Now, I don't have all the answers for all the developers that are out there, of course, because I don't know them all personally. And even if I did, I can't attest to their, bank balance. But it is a real issue to talk about, and generally have a chat with the buyers about, well, have a look at the other projects this developer has done. Have a look at their reputation for building projects, for delivering on their promises, and also when the building's complete, how good are they at fixing defects, which is a big issue when you get to the end and the project's completed and you want to move in and settle, and you have the opportunity to inspect the unit and see if there are any defects and how well the developer will deal with that as well. That's important.
Yes, and bearing in mind you are talking, some time down the track, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years down the track. So it's a long period of time between when you first sign the contract and when you actually get the keys.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
A lot can happen.
A lot can happen. So that's why you need to talk to a lawyer who understands off the plan and go through the contract with them and understand what is being promised and represented in the contract and the disclosure material. For example, they always have to give floor plans. They always have to give survey plans of the area, the lot, what they're promising to buy. If there's an exclusive use that's being allocated to the unit, then that has to be shown in a plan. So schedule of finishes. What type of finishes are they promising to deliver to the units? So all that material has to be disclosed up front to buyers, in addition to what type of time frame that they're looking at trying to complete the project. So all of that is very important, and buyers need to understand that.
So what if they don't meet a deadline? What kind of action can you take?
So under legislation, the developers have a certain time frame to complete projects. In Queensland, it is a maximum of 5.5 years, but most developers in their contracts have 3.5 years. So under the legislation, you choose 5.5 or 3.5. So in your off the plan, most off the plans that I've read have 3.5 years as a sunset date. So that's what we call the date that the developer has to complete and deliver the title to the unit to the buyer. So that's really important. Now, sometimes, depending on where the project is at, you can actually negotiate with the developer. Developers may or may not like to hear this, but if the project is, say, halfway through, and that's when you are looking at entering into a contract, so not at the early stages, the developer might be inclined to reduce that sunset period in your contract only and reduce it to, say, 12 months or 18 months, because they're already started, they already have got a fair amount of sales or contracts locked in, and they're pretty comfortable with their end date. So to make the buyers feel more comfortable that, okay, this is the sunset period, the developer has to complete it by this date, otherwise I get to walk away and get my deposit back, then they are inclined to change that and reduce the sunset period.
legally, is there any difference between off the plan when it comes to a multi-storey tower, for example, residential tower, or just a freestanding house?
Well, a freestanding house, a couple of... I'll change that.
No, that's all right. No, that's all right.
So when you're buying off the plan, you're usually buying townhouses that are going to be built, units, whether it's a mid-rise or a high-rise. A mid-rise is usually up to 10 or 11 levels, and then you've got your high-rises like Q1. And other off the plans if you're buying land. So developers have a big parcel of land and they're going to subdivide it, sometimes acreage lots, and we've done a few of those for our clients, and they subdivide them and then sell those pieces of land to buyers to build their own homes. All of those can be considered off the plan, absolutely. A freestanding house, as you asked, well, that's a little bit different because it can be an off the plan and it can't be. It depends on whether the developer is selling the land and building the home for the buyer or just the land.
Could it be the case where you've got the whole gated estates as well?
Absolutely, and I've done a few of those for my developer clients, and it can work really well. And some of them have building covenants and some of them don't. But yes, gated estates, absolutely, that can be part of an off the plan or considered an off the plan project.